welcome to Sang. This is Intermediate Scratch Lesson 3. Let's first start with our review. So, feel free to pause the video here and answer these 3 questions. Why do all the sprites have scroll X in them? In the code below in our program, what is different for each sprite? And what do you change if you want it to seem like it is moving? So, I'm going to go over them right now. Why do all the sprites have scroll X in them? It's so they can move. In the code below in our program, what is different for each sprite? It is the X value. And what do you change if you want it to seem like it's moving? You also change the X value. And then character movement. So, you'll want to put all of the code for the player movement in a forever loop. Or hold on, actually, this is going to be our final project code. So make sure you make a new project and start with a forever loop, right? This is so the code runs forever and not only for the very beginning. What this means is you're constantly checking if you want to move instead of only checking at the very beginning and then never checking again. Scratch has a block which checks if a key is being pressed on the keyboard. This is how we're going to make our game interactive. If you look at my screen, if you can see my mouse here, we have this right here, key space pressed, and you can click on this drop down arrow and change the space button. So it could be right button, left button, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you could do like WSD or arrow keys. It is in the sensing section. Alright, so you're going to want to try and fill out this if statement. You want to check whether the arrow is being pressed, and you also want to check that the character is not touching the color of your platforms, because otherwise your character will be able to walk through the platforms. So yeah, feel free to put an if statement inside your forever loop, and then you're going to want to try and make your own conditions. I'll reveal the answer in a few seconds, so make sure you pause the video here. You can get the color of your platform by checking costumes, right? So if you remember making the actual platforms, if you go to costumes there where you made the platform, and you click on the fill button, you can see what 3 values of red, green, and blue that make up your color. Alright, so here you go. Here's the answer. Basically, what we want to do is we want to check if our right arrow is pressed and it's not touching the color of our platforms. For our project, our example project, right? The platform color is red, so we don't want to be touching red. Alright, so we have an if statement and we have the condition, but what do we put inside of it? So you might remember our variable scroll X. We did this, we made it in lesson 2, but in order to make it seem like the character is moving, we'll have to move the background instead of the character. You can do this by changing scroll X. So by subtracting and adding to scroll X, you can make the background move and make it seem as if the sprite is instead. And this is an example of the code we'll use to move. Right, we're going to change scroll X by -5. Now, why -5, right? We want to move right, and to go right is positive, right? And actually, that's not the case for our program. We want to do -5. We want to move left because we're not moving our sprite, we're moving our background. And so, if we move our background to the right, it makes our sprite look like it's walking backwards, right? So instead, we want to have our background moving backwards to make it look like our sprite is moving forwards. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so this is what this is what your code should look like. You will copy the code again and change it just a little bit. Instead of right arrow pressed, you'll have left arrow pressed, and instead of -5, you'll have 5. Remember what I said about the positive part, right? You want it positive if you want to go backwards, and you want it negative if you go forwards. So, notice how it's all in this forever loop, right? Make sure it's in the forever loop so you're always checking. And then once you're done with this, feel free to move on. Alright, so jumping, right? We have platforms, but one of the requirements is that the game has to be hard enough to where you have to jump. You can't just, walk, right? So, what are some conditions for jumping? You have to be touching the ground. You can't jump in midair, right? And you also have to have the jump button being pressed. jump button can be any button you want, same as the left arrow and right arrow. It could be W or D, if you like using WASD. But I want to make sure our character is touching green because that is the color of a floor, right? If you remember what the platforms look like in the example project, you have a red platform and then a green, you could say grass on top. That's what our floor is going to be like. But yours could be different. Anywho, remember that you can use the fill to see the exact color, the exact three values that make up your color, so you don't get the values wrong. Alright, pause the video here and make sure you don't spoil yourself, but I'm going to go with the answer. So we first have if touching color, right? We need to make sure we're touching the ground and then key up arrow pressed, right? For us, it's up arrow. For you, it could be W or it could be space button. It could really be anything, right? Alright, so how do we actually jump? So you might want to think about your sprite's Y level, and it's, if you remember what the Y-axis is, it's basically the vertical axes, up and down, right? And so think about how you might want to change your sprite's Y value to make it seem like you're jumping. Feel free to pause the video here and try brainstorming for a bit, come up with your own answer, and then I'll go over a answer, not the answer. So this is a answer, not the answer, because there's multiple ways to do it, right? But this is simply just the way we did it. So we have our if statement here, we have the conditions for jumping, and then inside we have a jumping command, right? We have repeat 12 times, change y by 10. Now you might be thinking, why is it repeat 12, change by 10? We do this because if we were to change y by 120, just like that, what would happen is it wouldn't be a smooth movement, it just goes straight up and then stay there. What we want instead is we want a sort of smooth movement so that, we can go up, but then we can also move while we're going up. If we were to only do change by 120, it'd be one action and we'd go straight up. But if we do repeat 12 times and change y by 10, we're going to do a slower jump where I can jump forwards, right? Alright, hopefully that made sense. Anyway, when we jump, we don't want to keep flying in the sky, right? We don't want to be stuck in the sky, because that's not how real life works, right? We fall back down due to gravity. So how do we do this in Scratch? Try making another if statement, which does this. Here on the bottom right, we already gave you your condition. It's not touching the color green. If you're not in the air, then you're most likely falling, right? Because you can't fly. We just aren't built to do that. Maybe if you're a bird, but we're not birds, right? So feel free to come up with your own answer for the code inside of it. I'm just going to go ahead and reveal it right now then. So we have change y by -3. You can change the y by more or less depending on how fast you want to fall. But the important part is you're changing y by a negative, so you're going down. Okay, here's a review. So, what are the two conditions to jump? How do we know when to stop going down after jumping up? And why does the sprite have to be touching green to jump? Feel free to pause the video here and answer these three questions. Otherwise, I'm going to go over them now. What are the two conditions to jump? You have to be touching the ground and you have to press the up key. Remember that this key can be different for you in your program. How do we know when to stop going down after jumping up? When we touch the ground. Why does the sprite have to be touching green to jump? It's because the ground is green. Remember that it might not be green for you, and the sprite needs to be on the ground to jump. Alright, if you didn't understand any of those, make sure to come to office hours. I said this multiple times, but I'll say it again. Right, we have a bunch of teachers there to help you. It's 4:15 to 5:15 on Tuesdays and Sundays. You can come whenever you want. It's not mandatory, and you can leave whenever you want as well. Just hop by for like 5 minutes. It's fine, and then you can get help for your questions or problems with the code, and it's just a great resource for you. All right. With that said, thank you for watching today's video, and have a great day. Bye. that's it for today.